Hello and welcome to Personable, a podcast focused on speaking to the world's best, enabling you to become the best that you can be. Today, I'm honored to be joined by One Chowdhury. One is the co-founder and CEO of Y Combinator-backed Octolane, which has raised more than $2.6 million. He's also a friend and a Duke University dropout. One, I'm incredibly excited to speak to you today. You've been absolutely smashing it out the park. You plan to take down Salesforce. Why such a big giant like Salesforce, and how do you plan to do it?
Thank you, Harvey. Quite interesting story, actually. First of all, thank you for having me. The story is actually, I didn't know what Salesforce was. So I just came to SF to do my first engineering internship. It was a company named Mintlify. It was a startup back then. Now Series A backed by A16Z. So I was just working 7 days a week. So one day I just went out, I saw this tall tower and I asked my friend like, what's that tower? My friend was like, that's Salesforce. Everybody hates them. And I'm like, if everybody is hating them, then why they have the tallest tower in SF? Then I did some research and in 5 minutes I just called my best friend saying that, what if we make something better than Salesforce? Then we just kept going. My thought, and I it was at first like, okay, we have to do something impossible. Then it became more of like an emotional thing because we talked to hundreds of salespeople and they're like, I remember there was one conversation where a sales rep said that he was stuck like updating Salesforce until 9 p.m. at the office, and he missed his daughter's recital, and there are just tons of stories like that, and they don't want to do manual data entry and everything. That's why we wanted to do this. And when you started, everybody said it's just not possible. So many people, smarter than you, had more money than you. So it was quite a journey. At first, nobody would wanted to talk to us. Then some people would talk to us. Then nobody would wanted to use the software. Then some people started using software, but they would not stay. Then they started staying longer, and then some small department started using it. So it's quite a journey. We're still not there yet, but we're doing our best, and it seems like people want to give you a shot if you just keep trying.
I think for people in the sort of enterprise startup space, it's pretty obvious what Salesforce is. But for those that are students or just coming up in the business, they don't really know what Salesforce is. So could you explain a little bit about what Salesforce does, why they're so massive, and why do you think that, they aren't solving the problem? You mentioned someone having to stay in the office. What about Salesforce? You touched on it there, but what about Salesforce is keeping people in the office so late?
Yes. So anything that we use, any software or any company, any products that we use from those companies, for example, it could be Bank of America, it could be like a hospital, or it could be like Walmart even, or a small business. All of them, they have a huge customer data and they come in a lot of different format: meeting data, voice call data, or like just raw customer data like first name, last name, email, and everything. So when you have thousands of data like this, like structured or unstructured data, you have to save them somewhere in a database, hopefully in a cloud database where other people can access and make it as if it's like a source of truth. That's what Salesforce is. It's actually in the name. It's like a force of sales where you put all the sales data so you can manage on like, okay, this is where we sell, upsell, this is what a customer should have, and everything. So previously, people would keep it in like a physical server. Salesforce was the first software in the industry. It was like in 90s dot-com bubble where they came up and said all the data should be in the cloud. That's why the Salesforce logo, if you see, it's like a cloud logo because
Yeah.
they data to cloud. So that's what Salesforce does. But the challenge is, since yes, you have to keep everything on Salesforce, it's, think of it like a spreadsheet or like Excel sheet where you have billions of rows and it's like on cloud, you're managing it. So it's still very manual. You email someone, you have to keep it up to date. You sold something, the contract size, what you said, what customer's pain point was, like you have to keep everything up to date by typing manually. But
Yeah.
if you do your job, then other people would not be able to like go through that data and make right decisions. So you make one mistake, it's just gone. And everybody uses Salesforce. This is the number one sales software on the planet, as we are talking about. Bank of America, well, like Duke Hospital, like Walmart, SMB, it's like small businesses. Everyone uses
Yeah.
Salesforce, and it's like a monopoly now. So yeah.
You mentioned on top of that that when you said that you wanted to take down Salesforce, you said that a lot of people didn't say it was possible. Do you think that's like a common thing that people hear in entrepreneurship, or it was just because it was Salesforce that people were telling you you wouldn't be able to overtake them?
I do believe it's a common thing. It's obviously replacing Salesforce is incredibly difficult, but it comes in a lot of other ways, regardless of you're trying to start like a business selling flowers or trying to replace like a $300 billion company. So people would be like, oh, you never, let's say you want to start like a shop, like a flower shop, right? People would be like, oh, you never did a shop before. Like, how are you gonna, the business, finance, so many complicated things. So the people say it's impossible. They never did it before, like those specific thing, or they think it's just too hard. And that applies in everything, right? Like being an athlete, being a singer, being in business. I don't think it's like Salesforce specific. I think it's more of like a mindset. Yeah.
Could you talk to me a little bit about, what you noticed within the SF sort of region, working at, or the Silicon Valley region as well, that's whole sort of area, what you learned about, everyone trying to achieve success. I mean, it's almost like, the gold rush a couple hundred years ago, and everyone sort of has this idea of, changing the world and achieving extraordinary success. And there's a small group of a couple hundred thousand to a couple million people who are building multi-billion, multi-trillion dollar businesses, which are changing the landscape of the world. You've actually been on the other end of, raising money and, having a successful startup even at this point. But if you were to go back a step, there are hundreds, if not thousands or millions of students, builders all across the world who want to be in SF, who want to achieve, this extraordinary success. Compared to many other more traditional careers, there's often like, a stepping stone to achieve that sort of success. The people that are around our age in their early 20s, 30s even, that want to build these successful companies, what does like the downsides look for people in SF? Because I always see these LinkedIn posts of hundreds of thousands, get equity in these businesses, it's all going to take over the world, we've got all these users, it's all going to be successful. But for someone that's young, that doesn't have that experience, could you talk a little bit about the downsides for those that wouldn't already know about them?
Yes, definitely. So basically, I think it's different for different people, but I do think environment matters a lot. So if I see like five other of my friends, they're all doing business, they're all connected to it like this and that, then I would also try to do that. This is also very common in like Duke, right? Everybody is following finance, so I should go for that consultancy job. Everybody is doing like big tech, so I should go for that big tech. There are pros and cons, obviously, being in SF. Sometimes you might feel like it's a bubble because it actually is. I was in North Dakota for like a week. It's just like completely different experience. Even in North Carolina, right, in Durham. So it's a completely different experience. But at the same time, I think the best founders, they or anyone, I think they have like incredible amount of empathy. So they can actually see from like kind of like outside what other people would see and everything. So sometimes it's just not enough to be in a bubble. You should go out sometimes, and there are like multiple ways of doing so, right? You can watch other documentaries, talk to friends who are coming from different perspective or industry or background. That also helps. For me, what was I think because my goal was to do PhD, frankly, and become a professor, like in computer science. I think what actually helped me when I was in SF, I was in a very good startup where the founders, they themselves would work 7 days a week. That influenced me a lot.
Wow.
And the CEO, like the Mintlify CEO, he would come to office at 8 a.m. He would leave at 11 p.m. Like, and I would just see it. Like he would not have like any other things, just thinking about a startup. While he was doing that, he would also try to help other people, however he could. So that definitely impacted me. I think if this company was like, okay, I started immediately, I think that would have been like actually bad because I would not have any sort of experience how a startup works and I would have to like learn a lot of things. Just because I worked at a good startup, even if it was like an internship, I actually learned a lot. Obviously, it depends on the person. Like if you want to learn, you can learn from anywhere. There are other people who also do internship in like startups. But I was in a startup doing internship. I built a lot of product there from ground, learned, and then
Yeah.
I like applied those things. Actually, I think Paul Graham also said that. Like he said, young people, they should not immediately start a startup. They should work for a company first, learn how things are going here and there. You might get new ideas, new perspective. That helps a lot. Um, so yeah, so one thing that we actually recently implemented that we don't talk about like agentic infrastructure, agent or those sorts of technical
Yeah.
things. because salespeople, they don't care. When I was in North Dakota, like people don't know what AI is. They think ChatGPT is the AI. They don't care about Anthropic or
I feel like
OpenAI.
a lot of people do. I feel like a lot of people think that.
Yeah, so now we are like way more focused on like outcome based language. Like how can we make it to the like my grandma should be able to understand it.
Yeah.
So it actually helps to be outside of your bubble sometimes, but you also should be in the bubble to
Yeah.
get the value from the both end.
Could you give some like concrete examples of things that you learned working at that Y Combinator back startup that you wouldn't have known otherwise? I mean, you mentioned working really hard, but could you talk to some of the other things which you wouldn't have even thought about had you not worked there that summer?
Yes, so one of the project that I built at Mintlify was it's a technical documentation product. So basically, let's say you have like a huge source code or like code base. So Mintlify would have this product where it would make it easier to understand how it should work. It could be tutorial, it could be like documentation, anything easily accessible by public. So my thought process was, well, I was just implementing AI for Mintlify. So one of the product was where Mintlify documentation can be connected to AI with one click, and AI would tell you what are the grammatical things or how can we make this documentation page better for readers.
Yeah.
So I put a lot of effort into this. It wasn't like as easy just one click or like a chat GPT wrapper thing. So I spent weeks perfecting everything, and obviously like it makes so much sense. Why
Yeah.
wouldn't you use it? It's just making your reader's experience better in terms of like reading, right? I pushed it to production and everything, nobody used it. Then I was like, if only I made, like easy to use, maybe then people would use it. So I talked to my CEO, and my CEO said, normally, if people don't use a product, it's mostly because the pain point is not there yet, or the pain point is not strong enough. So even if you make it like a better looking design, I don't think it would have like work. But of course, I'm like kind of arrogant. I was like, ha, I know what I'm doing, right? So I spent another way making the design better and everything, but eventually he was right. And then suddenly I started seeing a lot of real life examples. Using AWS is incredibly hard because it's just so complicated to use. Microsoft Azure and whatnot. Everyone is using them, right? So it's not about the design, it's about the like pain point. The pain point has to
Mm.
be strong enough so that people would not care. They would use it at any capacity, however possible. Think of it like you are at a desert, right? No water whatsoever. You would try your best to get water. You are underwater. You would try your best to get oxygen. It doesn't matter. The oxygen is coming out of like a flask or like, I don't know, something else, right? So that didn't occur to me then. But that then showed me, okay, whatever I build in the future, the pain has to be strong enough that people would just pay without seeing the product. Like they want that thing that bad. When you build that product, maybe they're like similar, like a lot of, like similar products, then
Yeah.
maybe design become a differentiator, right?
Mm.
Like Figma can easily compete with Adobe because their design is so good, but they're also solving a huge pain point, like collaboration in a design platform, in a design settings. Adobe is not good with that. But secondly, if there is like a similar product just like Figma, then the design would not be a differentiator. You have to do something else, like extreme.
Mm.
So Salesforce would not be like a great competitor. Like we are not afraid of Salesforce. We are actually more afraid of a new AI CRM startup who would know how to do design, intuitiveness, LLM to make a better thing. So I know for a fact that eventually we will be able to replace people from Salesforce. We replace companies, we switch companies from HubSpot, from multiple companies. So Salesforce would happen. HubSpot is like close second when it comes to Salesforce for a small business owner. But switching a company, a customer from another AI CRM, exactly the product that we are doing, like building, gonna be actually difficult. So people are like, oh, Salesforce is your competitor. No, it's like new other guy who dropped out of
Yeah.
university and just that's his thing doing 7 days a week. Those are the things I learned. That's just one example, right? I think I can give you another example. So I built ChatGPT for documentation for Mintlify. It's like one of the most popular product for Mintlify. Like thousands of people are using it and whatnot. This is their core AI product. So when I built this, I was taking too long to launch it. I was just like keep coding, I was just making it perfect, etc., etc. Because my thought process, wow, Mintlify has 200 plus like customers. If we launch it like like poorly, it's gonna be like, because of course I was an intern. I didn't want to take any risk. Like this is like a startup company, it's just a new company. Why
Yeah.
would I take any risk? So I was just doing my best. My CEO, Han, he was like, no, no, you should just ship it. I was like, we are not ready, Han. And obviously he respected me and everything, so he gave me like opportunity to. But if he were
Yeah.
me, he would just shipped it. So I waited and waited and waited. So until Han is like, we have to ship it. I don't just need to like just ship it. So he turned on his video camera. It's like a big moment. It's a big feature. So I
Yeah.
launched and I was like, oh my God, the hell's gonna lose and what's gonna. Nothing happened. Nobody knew that we launched a feature for I think 24 hours or even more, I think. Then one guy started using it, and then two, and then four, and there's some bugs here and there. Then we fixed it. It was fine.
Yeah.
And it took us, I think, 2 to 4 weeks to everyone to know. Then we made it even better. But one mistake that I made, that I actually perfected wrong things. I didn't perfect the things that users actually needed. I thought I knew what users need. I didn't. Unless you talk to users, you would not know. You are guessing. Guessing is not good. People will be like, what about Steve Jobs? He always thought about the next big thing. No, Steve Jobs always talked to
Yeah.
customers, probably more than you thought. He would not get the solution from customers, but he would know what's the problem from the customers. So it's extremely important to know the pain point, the problems, the day-to-day activities that your customers or your friends are like facing. Then you can come up with the best solution, because of course you have access to all the best engineers, all the knowledge, patented technology that other people don't know. This is
Yeah.
true for LM. Like no one can say I have 10 years of experience in LM. So of course you talk to customers, they tell you their repetitive problem or whatever, whatever. They think what they know what they want. They don't know what they want. They know their problems. You, as a product engineer, you should be able to come up with, and then you read a lot of research paper, you try to understand how can I use LM in a different way. That is how you come up with like innovation. Everybody say that, oh, the touch screen iPhone, what is it doing? BlackBerry is like, our keyboard is the thing that people want, I don't care. No, he
Yeah.
patented it perfectly. Those are the things I learned, but unless you go through the pain, like I can tell people Y Combinator, this is actually the basic thing that Y Combinator says every single day. Talk to customer, build it, iterate, go back to customer, then again
Yeah.
build it, iterate. We didn't do it. We just built
Yeah.
it for like 2 months, didn't talk to customer, then took it to customers, and they're like, I don't know if I need this. I'm not, why would you have this button here? I said, well, that makes so much sense.
Well, just to sort of butt in there, there was the two main points. One being on the pain point, and one being on a feature that customers don't see unless you push it out. Even with my own podcast, right? I think when I first started this, when people start social media, there's sort of a presumption. Oh my God, it has to be perfect because the world's going to see it, and I'm going to get embarrassed, and my future employers, and future wife, and kids, and everyone's going to hate me for it. But then you put out your first video, and for me, there was almost this presumption that maybe my siblings or my dad or my mum or my cousins will watch the podcast, but it would get like no views. No one would watch it. Like, I used to do like charity projects, and yeah, a little bit like people would donate money. They have some spare. Oh, you see a link, okay, donate. But when you actually have a product which changes someone's life, like a podcast, what they listen to, what you're doing with Octolane, which actually changes the customer relationship model, which is a big part of their business. It's not done on goodwill. People aren't like, oh, I like your personality, da 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 da. It's, does it work? Is it better? Is it differentiated? And then we'll use it. And I think that was a really big learning point for me, because exactly what you just said on the pain point, it's not, oh, this is slightly annoying. It's, oh my God, I'm looking for a solution, whether you tell me about this or not. This is like such a big deal. I need this. And so that's why they pay for things in advance. And that's actually was initially seen with that big startup, Cluely, which has been going pretty viral, but now they're having some other problems with the product, but we can talk about that a bit later. And the second thing you mentioned about focusing really hard on your product, similarly relating that back to social media. I have a professor at Duke. He's called Dr. Aaron Dinnan. He has a couple million followers. And for me, when I first started getting nervous posting videos and putting them on the internet, I used to think that it'd be my really bad videos that would be embarrassing, right? you put out a TikTok video, it's not very like well put together, and you think, oh my God, everyone's going to see it's going to be really embarrassing. And he was like, no, Harvey, that's not the problem. The problem is not if you do something badly, because no one's going to see it. The problem is if you do something really, really well, and then millions of people see it, and then they notice a small problem. So just coming back from your advice is just go for it. Find a problem that's really big and really important, and that's how you find success.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's exactly, if I could have summarized everything that I have learned in startups, it's just focus. I think at the beginning I was too distracted. Now we are like way more focused. The startup is like moving faster than ever. But I wish somebody just told me like, why don't you just focus? Just talk to customer, solve one thing really really well, and forget about everything else, and just like keep continue doing what you are doing. Yeah.
I feel like I've focused a lot on, general advice for founders, but I want to do a deep dive on your own journey. And you're a smart guy, so I think you'll be able to remember all of these steps. But I think when we first met, in my freshman year at Duke, I spent a lot of time speaking to entrepreneurs, not necessarily wanting to build my own business, but even with this podcast, I wanted to sort of run it as a business. And I remember having a conversation with you, and you basically gave me the perfect step by step on how to go from idea to actual execution. But I want to focus on yourself. Like, could you talk to me about like how and why you wanted to code in the first place? If you wanted to build a startup or you hadn't known yet, why even go to Duke University? Why drop out? And how go from the idea that you'd got when you were at the other startup and wanting to beat Salesforce to actually doing it? Because I think every person on the street has an idea. Ideas can be cheap, but actually doing it and working on it 7 days a week is a completely different thing. So could you take me on that journey from learning to code, dropping out of Duke, coming up with the idea to actually doing it, and eventually, getting into Y Combinator?
Yes, so I learned how to code by watching YouTube. So it was insane to me that you can just build something and suddenly it's like accessible by everyone in this planet apparently. Like how does that make sense? And also it was like a common ground, like regardless of your like gender, color, ethnicity, like financial background, you can just build something for public to see and they can like see and like interact with it. I thought that was like almost like Superman level power. So I just wanted to do more and more and more, and it was almost like a drug to me, just building things. So I think that helped. I think also that was my way of like problem solving. So whenever I had something, okay, can it be like a website? Can it be like a stuff? So I started with basic JavaScript. Then it became more and more and more complicated. So eventually, so one problem that I had a laptop that was very low configuration. So I couldn't install all the softwares that I wanted, and I thought that was super dumb. Why cannot we have like a remote server where we can install whatever software we want? Because hypothetically, you can have unlimited power. So we build that. It's like on browser, you just go to this system where you can install any softwares you want, and you can use it almost like as if it was your own laptop. So during high school, and it became so popular, then like we had 300,000 web traffic per month, but people would mostly use it for running code because where I come from, like people don't have access to like high quality laptops, so people want to learn code, but they would like children or like high school kids, they would learn code from phone or mobile phone, like Android phone, so they can actually run heavy softwares through their Android phone um, using our app. So it became so popular. I wrote a lot of blog posts for SEO, so eventually learned a lot of things. One thing I didn't know that just by driving traffic you cannot earn money. That didn't occur to me. I thought if I just drive traffic somebody would pay. But by default I was attracting the wrong traffic. The people, they just cannot pay. That's why they're using our software. So eventually it became kind of like a non-profit thing. There were like volunteers who would help us. Google Cloud gave us some funding, but it was like cloud funding. It wasn't like cash. But that was like an incredibly like life-changing experience for me. So my current co-founder and best friend, we actually build that together, and he was my then co-founder, and we learned how to code like together from YouTube. So we really like bonded together. So eventually, I come to US for undergrad to Duke University. So I actually I didn't even apply to like Harvard or MIT. I applied to other like 21 universities where I thought like where I could have like some level of shot, because if it's not like a scholarship or financial aid, I just would not be able to afford this. Like there's just no one. So Duke was kind enough to give me full financial aid. There were a couple of other universities, of course, but Duke was in North Carolina. I talked to some like big brothers who are in US, who were like very connected. They're like, you should go to Duke. They have great food. People are like, you know,
Great food.
not like corporate culture. People are extremely supportive and helpful, and they thought that was my characteristics. And that turns out to be true. Like Duke's people, like they are extremely supportive. The alumni network is very strong. You can just go to anyone. Duke campus is not too small and not too big. So you eventually meet everyone in your class. That helped me a ton. And you can just go to a stranger and just talk and ask for a number or like get coffee. Nobody would get mad. Eventually you all would take some similar classes. Somehow they managed to do that. So that was incredibly helpful for me. But to be honest, I was lost during my first semester. I was figuring things out, cultural shock, people would not be able to say my name properly. I was just trying to see what can I do to like, help the community and everything. And I personally thought Duke made a mistake. Like I should not be here. Like, oh my God, these people, they look good, they are smart, they are well connected. They are also good at class. It take me probably a little longer to understand what professor is saying. But professors were like also helpful. So that was, I think, incredibly transformational for me. Like these people are so smart, but also so humble, and they try to help each other whenever they could. So my goal was to do just research. I was like a big fan of computer science and statistics. So I did that. I was tier for stats. I published a research paper on like biomedical and like computational model and everything. So during I would participate in a lot of hackathon. I think that's another thing that Duke does. If you know the right crowd, you can participate in a lot of hackathon, project building activities. So that helped a lot. I met a lot of people through that. So I built like a project where GPT just came out. You can just connect OpenAI's GPT and to like any code, source code or like any like big code base, and it would generate documentation from you for you,
Yeah.
and you can just read it and ask questions. So one of the employees of Mintlify, they actually saw it like a video. After watching that video, they reached out to me and they're saying, "Hey, we are not hiring any intern, but it seems like you did this. It's very related to our project. Would love to have you." I'm like, I heard San Francisco is very expensive and whatnot, whatnot. They're like, "We're gonna fly you over. It's gonna be $50 per hour, etc., etc. We will make sure you have a place to stay." Back then, it was like unthinkable for me. Like, why would someone pay me like $50 per hour? That's an insane amount of money. Like, I don't think anyone in my family actually earned that much, and
Yeah.
that I can earn as an intern. They would like fly me there, and like, it sounded like a dream. So I had like a research project. I dropped that. I joined Mintlify as an intern, and I would like just work 7 days a week and build, 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 build. I didn't want to build another startup because the last time I did, it was like a very painful experience, right? But there was some thrill. Like every day, it wasn't like the final result. It's just going through something and just learning. Because building a startup, it would give you like insane level of learning opportunity. Like the acceleration is just so high. So I went there, saw Salesforce. Apparently, it's like a $300 billion company back then. So I was like, okay, we need to dream big. My thought was, if I ever build something, like my next thing, it has to be so big that it should scare me. Like it should be like downright impossible. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's just not worth it. So that's why I like Salesforce seems like it still seems impossible, right? So I think and my realization was, if it seems impossible, it's actually easier to hire people. If it's like easier to do something, oh, that can be achievable, you cannot hire actually ambitious people. So that doesn't work well. So it was like a lot of things coming together. It was just LLM just came out, like everybody was excited about AI, and I thought it's like an arbitrage opportunity. San Francisco was like in the center of it. And I decided to drop out. There are a couple of decisions, right? The timing was perfect. If I waited 2 years longer, it would have been too late. If I 2 years before, it wasn't even possible because the tech wasn't there. So combining that, calling my friend, like he was like ready to come immediately, even though he was like halfway around the world. So that is how we just came together and just left. Yeah, it was. I would say it was like a thousands of micro decisions that actually, yeah, eventually like ended me like here. But I think one thing was always right, like how can I go up?
Yeah.
How can it be like incredible story? It wasn't, yes, it was $300 billion big company that attracted me, but it was never about the money. I think money was like irrelevant. It was like money is like the statement, right? It's proving how big it can be. So we wanted to fight for this story. Like, yes, it's impossible, but if it works, God help us, like, right? If it works, it's gonna be
Yeah.
like incredible story. Like this is the American dream. So that just pushed me higher and higher, just kept going. And I think
Can
if it
I
was big,
can I quickly just come in there for a sec and just ask about like I just want to ask a quick question that came to mind because a really big startup right now is Lovable, and another big one is Cursor. Cursor helping people to write code with AI, and Lovable enabling people to build or theoretically build non-technical startups using like a ChatGPT sort of like text to code sort of thing. If you had those tools at your disposal and went back 2 years ago, do you think someone that was non-technical would be able to build the startup you're building now? Or do you think you still need that technical side to have got from zero to one?
I think it would help, number one, to validate the idea the person is trying to build faster. For in my time, it was incredibly hard. I built like 21 projects and I was extremely technical. It took me some time. With Lovable and like Cursor like thing, I would have probably been able to be like 200 projects when I was at Duke. And that would have been helping me, like put me on the right direction. The
Yeah.
second thing is, yes, Lovable and Cursor help, but they can help you to win the battle. They cannot help you to win the war. Like you still have to have like incredible technical knowledge. Otherwise, like think about it. There's this non-technical person who can use Lovable and like Cursor. There is also like this extremely technical person. Of course, that extremely technical person would be better. So either the non-technical person needs to compensate with extreme level of sales knowledge or like domain expertise or agency. To be very honest, uh, only then it should work. But obviously, always like the world is filled with incredibly smart people, technical, and they also have access to these softwares. So
But on that point, I just want to ask another question. You mentioned you had the American dream as well, and that's a strong motivational point. But I've often found that when you have a big goal, it's not just the motivation. You need a strong track of discipline to keep you going. So how did you like? Obviously, you were working consistently, but how did you have consistent milestones to keep going? Like, even with this podcast, which I keep relating back to from my own personal experience, there is, no matter how much work or thinking time I put into it, have I put out an episode a week or two a week or three a week? So what was your version of that? Like what was that in your world to keep you going with milestones, pre-product, pre-revenue, pre-customer?
yes, you do have to be incredibly disciplined, but to be very honest, it was incredibly hard, right? I obviously don't want to
Yeah.
work 7 days a week. I'm young, all my friends are posting like good photos on Instagram. I do feel sad sometimes, right? So I think my motivation was I didn't have a backup plan or like a safety plan. I am like a first generation immigrant. This is it. That it needs to work. My mom is super upset. Like, why would you give up like a full like like Fulbright scholarship or like you don't have to pay Duke. Duke is paying you to study. Like, what are you doing? And I'm the first person to go to college in my family in US.
Yeah.
So of course, if I take risks, that should work. My co-founder, he has been also incredibly supportive, but it's also like my co-founder trusted me to do my job. If I don't do it, I'm also hurting him and
Mhm.
his goal. And then there are some other team members who joins, then it just kept you moving and going. But when it was pre-revenue, pre-product, we're still figuring things out. It's like extremely difficult. But you talk to 20 people, just one person say, oh, this seems like something that I would want. That one positive thing would just helped us going so long and so far. I also think in being in YC, like Y Combinator was incredibly helpful because it wasn't just me. There are like other founders who are also like kind of struggling, figuring things out. So I would have been able to like talk to them and learn from them. Those are helpful. So I would say it's a combination of like having a backup plan, having grit, and having some people who just support you through thick and thin. Otherwise, I think I was like a solo founder, I don't know if I could have been able to do it. Like I just look at my co-founder. He works so hard, then he probably looks at me and he's like, wow, like one works so hard. Then it just keeps like, building up and building up. But there are obviously days when I cried, but people like us, we don't get to show excuses. No one cares. Who cares? They only care about outcome.
Yeah.
Did it take us like 5 years? Who cares? What was the outcome, right? Nobody cares. Just keep going, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really strong point. Thank you for opening up about that because, even myself looking at you, it's like, wow, you went to Duke, you've dropped out, you're at Y Combinator. Everyone it has the same level of appeal as going to a Goldman Sachs, a top bank, a top tech firm. But there isn't the same level of permanence. Sure, these, big firms still cut a lot of people, but that's only, they keep 80% or they keep 50%. They're not, it's not only 5% of people that are successful. In the startup world, the large majority of people are not being successful in this world. So yeah, thank you very much for opening up about that story. On that point, I think I saw a statistic the other day that the average like VC that backs startups, maybe like 1% of them, I'm making that up number, I'd have to fact check that. Something like 1% of those startups becomes a unicorn for the big successful VCs. But for Y Combinator, that number is 4%. And pointing back to literally what I just said, the large majority of these startups don't succeed. The power law curve, you invest in 20 startups, one will hopefully do really well, one or two, come even or, double or quadruple, but 15 of them will just completely crumble. So on that point, like, what do you think is the biggest gap between where you are right now to you becoming that 5%, that 1 out of 20? What do you think is the biggest thing holding you back that could threaten you? And what are you doing to help make sure that you are that 1 in 20?
I would say it's not losing focus over a long period of time, and it's not the way that people think. Focus is not like, oh, I'm just gonna do this thing for the next 5 years and it's gonna be fantastic, unicorn and rainbow. No. Focus is also saying no to a lot of other things. Every other day, there's like a new LM model is coming up. Should we get distracted? Probably not. There are like a lot of
Yeah.
shiny object syndromes going on. Competitors are like launching features after features. Should we get distracted? No. We should focus on the one thing that we're very good at. We have a specific roadmap. We learn from real customers. So just focus on those things. Focus is also like using your capital very efficiently. Do not just put random advertisement on LinkedIn. It literally doesn't matter. Build a great product. Make sure that just compounds by itself. Focus is also talking to the right people. Focus is also building the right thing for the right people at the right time. And sure, you also need a little bit of luck. Focus is also not to go to random places and stay where you need to stay. San Francisco, the AI hub, the next renaissance, right?
Yeah.
So it's also not enough to be focused only for 1 month, maybe not 1 year. People vastly, I personally definitely underestimated how much we can achieve in like 5 years, and I overestimated how much we can achieve in just 1 year. So the first 5 months, the first 1 year, even the first 1.5 year, it was extremely painful. Finally, things are like turning around. I saw a lot of my friends and people, they just, I'm not gonna say like give up. It's very painful. We should not judge people. There are like things coming up like all the time. But if you do something great, I'm not talking about good product. Like I'm talking about building a great product, like a generational project. It will always take 10 years. I don't care what people say. It's
Yeah.
always going to be like a 10 years project. So you should always like people always I see just overestimate what they can achieve in 1 year and underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years. So when you just shift that mindset, we are here for the long term. We have to be focused. And if we just get distracted, then it will be just, like all gone as like the person in our company who's like leading the vision, keeping people like up to date. uh, my team members, they also get distracted. They're like, oh, but did
Yeah.
you see this, did you see this news, etc, etc, did you see this new report? It
So
literally
noise.
yeah, it literally doesn't matter. The customer say there are like 4 bugs, we need to fix them in the next 5 hours. I don't care if there is GPT-7 on the ground right now, fix that. It took me a long time, to be very honest, to actually learning this, but now I think we are on the right track. It's just focus, like just one word. It's just focus, and then I think yeah, and all the companies they have like focus.
Yeah, I mean, I like to relate these things back to myself because it's easier for me to understand and tell stories and relate that back to yourself. But in high school, similarly to you, I would work 7 days a week, not on a startup, but just sort of like extracurriculars and academics and sport and all the other different things that I would do. But what I found is that I had split focus. And so even though I would work incredibly hard at school and then incredibly hard in the sports field and then incredibly hard, on a business or on a school club, no matter what I did, there was a limited amount of hours that I could possibly put into that thing. And, that still got me into Duke and I still did, incredibly well doing that. But my parents would always tell me, like, Harvey, you have so much potential and you're working hard and you have this initiative. But if you don't put that into one thing, the person that does one thing versus your two will always beat you. And so when I came to Duke, that was very apparent for me. It wasn't like, I was still gain friends and join clubs and stuff like that. But it was very much like, if I want to win at this game, if I want to win in recruiting, if I want to win in life, if I want to, actually achieve things, I've got to really focus on things. And that's definitely something I found. And even with your, 10-year point, some misconception that I had was, okay, I had this idea, I have this thing, I'm going to go full steam at it for a week, 2 weeks, a month, and then I'm going to be successful and it's going to work out. But at I think my seventh podcast, which was basically 3 years ago now, which has fully transformed the way I think about things, was exactly what you just said. And it was with a guy called Nick Wheeler, who's the founder of a shirt company called Charles Tirrett, right? And he had three businesses. The first one, a Christmas tree selling business. And he realized, that seasonal, can only sell trees once a year. So that failed. The second business was like a made-to-order shoe company. So they draw around your foot, faxed it off to India. The shoes all came back different sizes. So that business failed. But the third business was, if you buy like a premium shirt, it might cost you $100 or $200. He was like, what if you can get premium shirts, 4 of them for $100? So he worked at that. He failed. It wasn't a sexy business, but he enjoyed it. And over 30 years, he's built this into a multi-billion-dollar company. And he told me, Harvey, why would I get VC money? I'll come in and I'll either go boom or bust straight away, or I'll learn, I'll make a mistake, I'll learn from it, I'll move forward. And I think that perspective, if there's one thing that people take away from this podcast, is exactly what you said. You'll overestimate what you do in 1 year, but underestimate what you do in 10. Is that you've just got to keep at it when no one's watching. That curve of success, all of those gains come a lot later, but you've just got to start and keep going. So yeah, I just wanted to add my perspective to that, because I've definitely found those perspectives from my own life as well.
I totally agree. Like, it's just like, just keep at it. It's just so simple. I guess people want to learn some shortcuts and stuff, but the truth is very boring. You just don't give up and just keep going. But it doesn't sound, like hot. Like, ooh, what is the tactics? What are the shortcuts? But yeah, there's no shortcut.
I want to delve a little deeper in the last 20 minutes or so into AI more generally, and something myself as more of a consumer of AI than a builder. As I've noticed, there are so many AI products, right? Even from a ChatGPT OpenAI level to an Anthropic level to a Grok level. There's a lot of different models, but then as subsets of that, there are a billion startups that are coming out. How do you tell and differentiate, in the AI world, a lot of people used to like to say moat, what makes that different? What is the moat? What is the key thing that enables you to tell what a successful, aside from exited, but like while they're building it, what a successful looking or startup that is actually doing well as a consumer? How do you tell what is real and what is fake? Is it, they have millions of followers like Cluely or like Series, or is it that their just product looks incredible or is incredible like Lovable? Or is it the number of users they have? Is it the number of customers they have? Is it money raised? Is it, what is the key traction? What is the key point statistic thing that me as a consumer can look at for a company? Or is it just different for every company that enables me to differentiate and cut through the bullshit to tell this is a real AI company, this is just some rapper that's never going to do anything?
Yes. So I personally think you should just use the product and see how it feels like. When I used Cursor, I had like life-changing experience. So I have been using Cursor from the very early days. It wasn't like super good, but they would improve so much. So the
Yeah,
first signal is when you use it, do you feel good? Like, is it changing your life
yeah,
in a positive way? Yes, of course. Maybe that product wasn't meant for you. Maybe something other
yeah,
like stuff. So then you need to see, like, let's say something like a CRM or like a Salesforce alternative, right? Can it actually be tailored to the custom workflow of that person, which cannot be replaced by other like OpenAI or like ChatGPT API call or something? Like, it has to be so well connected to that or tailored to that workflow that is really good, you feel the difference. So that's like Lovable, that's like Cursor or something like that. The second is how fast they are improving. So Lovable, they shipped really, really fast. Every single week they would have update and everything. This is also true for Cursor. Cursor is shipping so much update even today. Like it's insane to me. It's also true for some other software. The third thing is we call something called net revenue retention, NRR. It's not the ARR, which is annual revenue recurring revenue, because you can kind of force annual recurring revenue if you want to, put a lot of advertisement, do this and that. But what's your churn? Maybe people just paying you
Yeah.
$20 per month and then they forgot about it. I don't wanna use this, but $20 is also nothing. So net revenue retention is that when a customer signs up, he pays some money and then he pays more and more. And let's say he started with $100 per month subscription, he ended up paying like $120 per month subscription. So it's actually like getting better. So for example, a good example is Cursor. I started with $20 per month subscription, then it became $40 per month subscription. Now we pay $200 per month subscription for each of our team members. Plus, there is also usage based. So you can see the net revenue retention is increasing. Now, something like Cluely has obviously like incredible marketing team. There is no denying that. In terms of product, they're still working on, and they have the money to work on their product. But in my experience, I used Cluely, then I didn't use it anymore, right?
Yeah.
I canceled the subscription. Maybe I will come back in like 8 months because they're working on their product. But at the same time, I'm not seeing a lot of signals like how fast they're improving their product. So it's not like Lovable or like Cursor. I don't feel like, because Cursor would give so much update. Every update they would give, it would be about product. And I could be very biased because I'm a very product person. So I didn't feel like my feedback were like hard, the challenges that I faced with Cluely. But then again, they have the money, so they can figure things out. But I believe the
Yeah.
startups who started very early, it has to be in your DNA. If you are not improving and iterating and listening to your customer from day one, regardless of how much money you raise, regardless of who is the investors, it's just hard. Think about Figma. Like that guy, he didn't care. Like he just worked so hard for the first 3 years to building. We know for a fact that the design collaboration is the thing. I know it's hard to build, but he's just so product focused, linear, Cursor, Airbnb, so good. So that is how you can differentiate. But there are multiple ways to win, and winning means different for different people. For some people, can I just get some revenue somehow? Can I just build I don't need 1,000 customers, I just need 100 customers, but they just love me because the product is so good for them. So they're like different ways. So number one, first see, does it change your life? If it's changing your life and you can feel it, there has to be something there. Maybe it's their design. Maybe it's how they design the button. Like there's something, right? The self onboarding flow and everything. Secondly, are they pushing update as fast as possible? Like, do you feel like they are hearing you? Number two, even Tesla, right? You comment something bad about Tesla, Elon Musk is replying there. But he replies, and then the customer support, they solve the problem under 1 hour. Like, what's happening there? I don't see like BMW is doing that, or I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little bit biased. Third thing is basically the team. It's a combination of those things. So financially, net revenue retention. People can come with EBITDA and like other stuff, but I focus on net revenue retention. So in our company, we actually never focused on revenue. It was always about retention. The product has to be so good that the sales rep is logging into the product every single day. I don't care he is paying $20 or I don't care if he is paying $200. If he is logging every single day, if he is saving and doing everything through our platform, we can charge him $2,000 per month and he would still use it because our retention is so high. And a lot
Yeah.
of VCs and a lot of people seems to get that. And they're like, wow, you're so right. That's like a second time founder mentality. How did you get that? It's like, because we want to build the best product possible. I don't know what to tell you. So yeah.
Yeah. I'm writing down. What was that? What was the name of the revenue thing you mentioned?
Net revenue retention, NRR.
It's really interesting. I'm just writing that down. I'd never heard of that before. I want to ask you a few like short answer questions, not like a yes no, but maybe like a few lines, just because I want to gain your perspective on a wide variety of things. So I recruited for sales and trading. I did go the big name thing, and that's just what I'm more interested in as a career versus startups, at least right now. And that went well for me, fortunately. And now some of my friends were recruiting for consulting. And over the past maybe like 3 years, 2 years that I've been hearing about AI, more from a consumer standpoint rather than someone in the valley, hearing about stuff day to day or real time on X, was, it's sort of these big things. ChatGPT changed the way. It's sort of like an advanced Google with steps, but it wasn't like, we have like the Tesla Optimus robots in my house yet, or, self-driving cars all over the world. Nothing like that. Like you've seen some tangible impact, with the user base of OpenAI and ChatGPT, but it wasn't like in day to day. But a couple of weeks ago, a ton of my friends from Duke and other universities applied to McKinsey, Bain, BCG, all the top consultancies. And these people have the best extracurriculars, 4.0 GPAs, have done some of the most incredible things. And I would say 95% of my friends got rejected from every single one of these firms. And I looked at it, I was like, what happened? Did you not case enough? Did you not network? Did you? And one of my friends did get a role at like I think Bain or something like that, so he did very well. And I was speaking to him, I was like, why did no one else not get a role? And he was saying that they have drastically, I can't give you the exact number, but maybe 1/5 of the number of applicants they normally take, or well, they got rid of 4/5 basically of the interns because of AI. So sort of on that point, there's both the fluff of, oh, AI is going to change the world today and everything's going to be completely different, versus the best firms in the world, like McKinsey, Bain, BCG, are not taking juniors. What are the tangible impacts in AI that are actually revolutionizing and changing the world today that the average person at home should start to notice today and in the coming few months?
Yes, I think, first of all, you can actually achieve more with less now. I don't think
Yeah.
people are actually seeing it that way. Uh, the people are still getting into like Bain or like this finance or like top platform, but you have to be like incredibly smart now. Like it's just not enough to be like the top 1%. You have to be top of the top. Plus, I think the smartest people, they know how to use properly. So I would start with this. I don't think it's the AI that's going to replace people. I think it's the people who know how to use AI properly going to replace other people who don't know how to use AI. And that has been happening all over the industry. There was this, I think, job called typewriter, like the typists. They would just type hours after hours. Now it's like a soft skill. Now everybody needs to type. So it's not, it doesn't exist anymore, right? So it's kind of like that. Secondly, I would also want to mention, I think people need to know how to use AI properly. There are like obviously courses and everything, but you have to be more creative than ever. Everybody has access to AI, just like everybody has access to like Google. But Googling back in my time, which is literally 2 years ago, was also like a skill. Not everybody knew how to Google. Then the second degree scale, right? Not everybody knew how to actually organize informations and decide what to do, where to go, and everything. Yes, everybody has access to ChatGPT now. You can ask anything and get answer. You still have to organize, understand, extract key information because you have 10x more data now, and it's coming to you even faster. So the fundamental skills like the critical thinking, problem solving, communication, convincing the other people what you wanna like convince that person to still exist. So the people who are actually getting ahead are the people who has great, like problem solving skill, extreme domain expertise, knows how to talk, very eloquent, agency everywhere. I think that is how you can actually get ahead, regardless of you have AI or like you have like super intelligence or whatnot. And you can ask like the smartest friends that I have seen, they don't just use ChatGPT, they use it in some ways that I would not think of. Like for example, one of my friends, he goes through a lot of newsletters, right? So he built this system using OpenAI where he built a connector in ChatGPT where it would go through his Gmails, identified keywords with like newsletters, summarize that entire thing, and every morning it would email him with like key points, like one bullet points from all the newsletters. It's like
Wow.
his own New York Times, right? That literally wasn't possible, I don't know, a year ago. Now it's just so good. This can be applied to anyone. Let's say you are a researcher, like a healthcare researcher. it was very difficult for you to read through or go through all the research paper because you have to spend so much time. Because LLM, you can obviously do some things here and there. Now, I'm not gonna lie, our team, we are like 5 engineers. We can achieve actually more um, with just 5 engineers instead of like 50 engineers. But the thing is, these 5 engineers, they're all like 10x engineers. So the junior or the intern level position, they would not matter. Either you have to be extremely problem solving. Of course, we are not hiring interns, but if there is like an intern who was like extremely smart, took agency, built already a feature, that we needed, of course we would have hired him. I think it's actually easier now to be hired. You just need to show some level of agency. You
Yeah.
just can't throw like a resume, like reach out to LinkedIn and hope it will. No, create like a slide deck using ChatGPT. Why we should hire you? Like a 10 slides. When you create like a resume, did you actually use ChatGPT to improve it? Did you create some projects? Like because it's just so easier now.
I
Still,
would
yeah.
I think that's really fascinating that you've said the point, it's not AI that's taking your role. It's just you have to move with the times. And I think that's a really fascinating point. And actually, that's the biggest piece of advice that I give my younger siblings applying to America or my friends that are recruiting for jobs. I'm like, if you want to do this, you're not just applying, you're not just networking with a few people, once a day or 2 times a day or a few times a week. You are speaking to 5 people a day. You are maintaining those relationships. You're thanking them the minute they get off the call. You are keeping that relationship up. You're offering them free value. You learn something new that's interesting, send it to them. You give them, you make yourself so undeniable, so good, so obvious, and so much better compared to the competition that people have to choose you and you have to be hired. Like if you were to think about who is someone that would be, employed at your startup or any Y Combinator startup or Apple or Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley, whatever it is, and you look at that applicant and you're like, all right, great grades, great extracurriculars, great initiative, da da da, whatever. All right, then 2x that. What is that amazing ideal candidate doing? What can I do more than that and more than that and keep pushing and keep going? And that's what's hard is that, what you're saying about working 7 days a week is there's the whole, work-life balance and all of that other things that, we like to have in our world and in our lifestyle. But the realistic nature of the world is that if you want to achieve extraordinary things, because all these companies are extraordinary, if you want to achieve extraordinary things, you have to do extraordinary things. And I think that is something that I've definitely learned through the process. I want to ask you one last big question on AI, and then three closing questions. And this is sort of a combination of two. I'm just sort of weaving two things in one. Um, when they had the arms race, in the sort of around the Second World War, there was a big focus on how do we get the best and the biggest bombs, and then we're focused on the safety after, right? So, we've got the arms race, we've got the US, versus, Germany and whatnot, and who can build the biggest bomb, wins the war. Oppenheimer, if you were to simplify the whole thing. And it's the same thing with AI, with the US versus China, versus India and all the other countries in the world. The game is build the biggest and best AI, and then safety second. Regulation follows on from innovation. What are some unintended consequences of doing that, of widespread AI adoption, in which we're just building as quick as possible without thinking? And on top of that, as sort of a subset of that, what sort of implications will that have for the average human being with regards to intimacy, work ethic, coming up with ideas? I'm on a plane yesterday and every single person is on that plane on Netflix, not even thinking for themselves. So sort of those two facets of, what are the unintended implications of widespread AI adoption and how this impacts real humans in real life every day.
Yes. So it's just like gun, right? Guns can be used to protect people, but at the same time, on the wrong hands, it can actually, do like, yeah, it can do like pretty big damage, and we have seen examples of that. But at the same time, we do need guns to like protect others, like police force, military force, and everything. That's a very basic example. But let's just go to the nuclear warfare, right? Nuclear, I personally believe is amazing. Like it could have solved like the electricity problem. There are like a lot of other things. There are some countries where like a big portion of the electricity is coming from nuclear. It's like clean energy, not carbon and whatnot. But because of the World War II and this like some tragic incident, people would see it like as a taboo. So we would not be like we haven't been able to have nuclear power plant the way we wanted to have in America, because of course when that happens, policymakers and everything, they get like extra scared. So it wasn't handled with like care, because that was a desperate time, and desperate times needed desperate stuff. So they did what they thought would have been the best. This is intelligence that we're talking about. Like, this is just a nuclear. If there are some bad things happen, for example, I'm just gonna give you like a really random example. You give LLM the writing power of a database, and the database has access to, let's say, nuclear arsenal, or like very random example, right? Or like healthcare data, or something, or some hackers did something like a prompt injection, whatever. There's a new type of cyber attacks now. When those bad things will happen, obviously it wasn't the fault of LLM, it was the bad actors who did it. Immediately the publics who would not understand it, they would be like, LLM is the, like, that was the reason this happened, right? People, it's
Yeah.
just difficult, and there are like so many like debates happening and arguments happening, then immediately people forget about all the good things that came out of that specific thing. They only focus on the negative things. And social media, they actually rewards amplifying negative things, and because of social media it's like even bad, even like worse now. So those are the consequences that we can have.
Um,
At the same time, obviously there are like negative things that we are seeing, that people are spending a longer time with like AI. They think it's their friend, and then trying to like just talk to it, of course, because LLM is echoing or saying the things that you want to hear, because that is how they keep you on the platform. But at the same time, there are like a lot of people who are like lonely. There are examples after examples how they got help about their healthcare things the doctor couldn't say properly, but the LLM was able to say. um, so it goes both ways. But I believe the reward is just so high. Like, we just cannot compromise, but at the same time, we need to minimize the risk. So the real goal is, how can we minimize the risks while having the maximum reward? Think about cars, right? Yes, when we had cars, did we actually got rid of, like, okay, no, there were some car accidents, of course, but we didn't get rid of cars. We are like, we need to have seat belts, we have to have laws, we have to have traffic laws, train the police force, we have to have a specific traffic police. That is how we went. So I think the policymakers, they need to understand from the engineering perspective, also their perspective, and how the average, like a children, like how they are seeing it AI. Maybe the children would think the AI is always right. That's not the case, right? So we need to like pass laws maybe, or like just making sure we know, understand, and proper training. Instead of discouraging people in schools and college, hey, you should not use AI, we should encourage people how to use AI properly, so you can become a 10x human being. That was the goal all along. I think that is how we should go for this. But obviously, yeah.
okay, three final quick questions. The first of which being, if I was to ask someone in 100 years or 150 years, how would you want to be described and what would you want your legacy to be?
One moved with courage when it wasn't possible, and he impacted our lives so profoundly that we still use his creations directly, indirectly. That's still spreading positivity in one way or another.
My penultimate question is, what's next for you?
To switch at least 100 companies from Salesforce, I think that's the next big thing that hasn't been done before. There's not a single company who did it. If we can do it, then if we can do it for 100 companies, we would be able to do like the 10,000 companies, and then it's just game over. We will have the tallest tower in SF.
And my final question is, what is one thing that you would want a listener to take away from this episode? It can be something you've mentioned or not mentioned so far.
Instead of doing 10 random things, just focus on doing one thing. And the skill that you should have all the time is the agency and the focus. Like, you need to know how to talk to people. Walk up to the stranger. It might seem scary. It's not. Put that video out. You might think it's scary. It's actually not. Nobody's thinking about you. But by doing things, that you think is scary, that is how you actually grow. So just take actions day after day and keep going. It always seems impossible until it's done.
I think you mentioned this before as one of the ways that people will be successful with or without AI, and as the world continues to develop, is your ability to be eloquent and to express your ideas in a coherent manner. And I would 1000% agree with that. But something I've noticed doing these podcasts, I think this is like my 77th episode or something ridiculous like that, and having spoken to thousands of people through networking and interest and other things like that, is I've noticed what makes someone a good speaker and what makes someone a bad speaker. And often it's, their ability to speak coherently and give ideas and tell a story. But actually, a statistic which I had never thought about before, which I kind of made up internally, is the quantity of quality information over a short period of time. And I think you are definitely one of the best guests I've ever had at being able to give a high level of quality information in a very short period of time. Because I've interviewed other people, and I'm not going to name names, of people that have been on the biggest podcasts on the planet, and they always have to tell the same stories. What led you to do XYZ? Why did you write this book? What are the key 5 things from that book? And I still think the main media and the main consumption of people is on people like that. It's the same stories from the same people. How do you start a job? How do you start a business? And it's edutainment. It's, you're getting entertained by being told how to start a business, which isn't actually real world what happens, right? If someone sells 1,000,000 books and this is the gateway to a successful business, that is very unlikely to be able to enable you to find that key necessity to solve it yourself. So yeah, I just wanted to give you that compliment because I feel like I learned a tremendous amount. There were definitely 10 or more things that have changed my perspective on how I think about entrepreneurship. And I think this will be an invaluable podcast for both anyone that wants to learn more about what it takes to build one of the biggest and best businesses on the planet, the future tallest building in SF, and for anyone else that, wants to see just how hard you work. So thank you so much, One, for coming on the podcast. I learned a tremendous amount.
Of course, thank you, Harvey, for taking time. I had a wonderful time.